So you brought your first snake home and you're starting to have a few problems. Or, even better, you're thinking about getting a snake and you haven't dealt with any problems. This is the video for you to help you just think about all the things that you need to do and think about to make sure that your snake is going to thrive and do well. There's basically 3 or 4 things that you need to know and keep track of, and as long as you keep track of these things, this will keep your ball python, your boa, your corn snake. Most of the snakes that are sold have very similar requirements. These even work for my green tree pythons, except they need a little bit more spraying. But basically, you're going to need to have a home that the snake can stretch out in. It is better if you can actually even make a custom home for your snake. You can really take some time and give them a big, beautiful home. I'm a breeder, so I keep snakes basically as sterile as possible. They're in smaller homes than they should be. They're kept super clean, fresh water, fresh home, everything's super clean, and that's what I do to keep them kind of in the best condition that I can with the space that I have. But if you're setting up a snake for its forever home, I really believe that you should give them a much bigger home. Give them a home that they can go exploring in and do lots of stuff. But at the same time, when it's a baby, you can learn all these things in smaller environments. There's nothing wrong with taking a little snake and having it in a little tub. Just as that snake gets bigger, you want to give it a bit of a bigger home. Plus, it gives you the experience to be able to kind of grow with the snake and to be able to design or make a new home while it's living in a small one. So let's say you have a snake living in a small container, and now you have all its needs met. It has its food, it has its humidity, it has its heat, and everything's right in there. Now you can get to work on making it a new fancy home that is big, and that you have all the things set up properly. So the first thing that you're going to need is the ambient temperature of around 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So in this room, the room temperature of this room is around 70 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit at all times. So that helps keep all of these snakes warm. Plus, all of these reptile homes have heat, so it heats up the room, and I have that kind of automatically inside this room. So all my animals thrive very well here. But if you are just bringing a snake into your home and you have it in the living room or one of your kids' bedrooms, room temperatures change a lot more than in this specific room. So sometimes someone will take a snake home and all of a sudden their snake's not doing as well, it's not eating or something, and that is often because one of these parameters are wrong. So the first thing, you need to have the inside of the air inside your reptile home to be around 80 degrees. That's your ambient temperature. And some people forget about this or think, okay, as long as the hot spot is good, you're good. No, it's not just the hot spot is the right temperature for them to digest. The air also needs to be around 80 degrees, okay? Now, the second thing that you're gonna have to make sure that you do is have the correct hot spot. So you're gonna wanna be able to have a hot spot that is big enough for the snake to go onto. So the whole snake should be able to fit onto the hot spot, and nothing really bigger than that. As long as the snake can go onto the hot spot and digest its food, that's good. You're going to want to have a hot spot of around 88 degrees to 92 degrees Fahrenheit. So I like to think 90 to 92 in the winter. Lots of the time just 92 in the winter. And then in the summertime, 88 to 90. So that's what you want to be thinking during the winter to summer. You might have to adjust your temperatures a bit, and you can heat them by either using a thermostat, which often will turn on and off, so I don't really like that as much, and they can be very expensive if you get a pulse proportional one. But if you do want to get a nice thermostat and spend the money, get a Herpstat. It's a pulse proportional heater. So what that means is it controls the temperature constantly. It's always on. It's like a light on a dimmer. You can make it go down a bit, you can make it go up a bit, and Herpstats, they'll do that automatically. So they'll keep the temperature right. If it gets colder, it'll start bumping up the heat. If it gets hotter, the heat will drop down. But pulse proportional thermostats will control your heat evenly. Normal thermostats, most of them will constantly, they'll go to the heat, then they'll turn off. Then they'll go to the heat, then they'll turn off. So they're always turning on and off, so things can go wrong with them a lot easier. You're honestly better off just using a dimmer. And you can just get a dimmer from the home hardware store. You plug your heat up to your dimmer, and then you can use the dimmer to adjust the temperature and have a probe inside where the heat is, and the probe is on top of the heat mat, like inside the home, and then you see the temperature, and you can constantly adjust the temperature by looking at what the probe says. Or you can get a laser gun, which is what I like to use. It's somewhere. Yeah, you get one of these. And with this, you can basically laser everything and see what the hot spot is and adjust it accordingly. So with the dimmer, you have to manually adjust the temperature. With a pulse proportional thermostat, it does it all the time. And with a normal thermostat, it turns on and off all the time. And that's the way that you can control the heat. Next, just as often as ambient temperatures are kind of ignored, people just put them in the room and do whatever. Another big thing, huge thing that's ignored is humidity. And lots of pet stores say 50 to 60% humidity is fine, and it's not. You want your snake to have about 65% humidity. If they don't have about 65% humidity, they're not going to be shedding as well. They're not going to be having a good time. You're going to cause them to have respiratory problems. So you really want to make sure that your humidity is like 60 to 65%, even 70. You don't want to go past 70 because then you'll start having problems with mold, and that'll cause even more problems than if it was a little bit too dry. So the way that you're going to have your humidity at 65% all the time, you're going to buy yourself a humidifier. You're going to take the humidifier, and you can go get them at the secondhand store, Value Village we have here, or whatever you have maybe in the States. You go get a humidifier, and then you run a tube. You can get tubing from the hardware store, and basically tape up the hole that the humidity comes out of, run it into the tank. Lots of the time you can put it right on top, run it into the tank, and then figure out the right temperature, right setting to have it on the right humidity at 65% all the time. And do that. You can also use timers, and the timers can be turning on and off, so it just goes like 5 hours a day or a couple hours a day, and that way the snake keeps getting humidity. This is a lot better for the snake than misting it. People think that they can just go and mist their snake every day, but what does misting do that's different than the humidity? One is making the air more humid. The other is just wetting the environment. And when you wet the environment by misting it, it's like licking your lips. It just wets it, and then they get dry. It wets and gets dry. And that's not what you want. You want the air to have the humidity, and you're going to have that by using a humidifier. You're not going to have that by spraying them. And I'll still spray my snakes. I spray my green tree pythons all the time because that's how they like to drink. And when a snake's going into shed, you could give it a little mist, but you're going to benefit them a lot more by using a humidifier. So use a humidifier, and then when shedding time comes, you can spray them a bit. But the way that you know that all your temperatures and everything are right is when your snake sheds and they have a perfect shed, that means your humidity is on point. If your humidity is off and they're always having problems shedding, it's something that needs to be sorted out. So you got your temperatures sorted out, you got your humidity sorted out, and you got your ambient temperature sorted out. Those are the three main things that are the most important, and that's where you have most of your problems. Another thing that can sometimes cause you problems is substrate. It looks nice, and it might make you feel better, but the snakes don't really benefit from it. Like, you could say they do, but there's more against it than for it, okay? If you have your snake on substrate, that substrate can get stuck in their eyes, it can get stuck in their butthole, it can get stuck under their scales, and it's one of the things that can cause problems. Will it? With an adult snake, most likely not, but probably most of the problems are just people dealing with those temperatures and trying to get that right. But I've had several times where snakes have had issues because of crap getting stuck under their scales or in their butt or in their eye, or they swallow it while they're eating, because unless you want to, feed your snake on a plate or something and make sure that none of that substrate goes in their mouth, it's actually more dangerous than it is beneficial. As long as you get those temperatures and everything right, you can give them something to climb on. That would benefit them a lot more too. If you had a bar going across or a big branch going across that the snake could climb on, exercise is going to be much more important than it laying in substrate. Also, substrate, if you don't clean it properly, which lots of people don't, Lots of time they think it's easier, just scoop out the poo and toss it and replace it, and then they'll leave it for months without changing it. If there's any issues with humidity, you can end up having bugs in there. If you don't end up cleaning the pee and poo properly, it can spread. There's lots of issues you can have for it. So I don't want to get attacked for saying Substrate is bad, but you have to be careful with it. You always have to be aware of those things, and you have to understand that it introduced risks that would not be there without the Substrate. I wanted to make this video today because I went to go help a lady that reached out to me on Facebook. She saw my YouTube videos and whatever, and she's had snakes for years and they've been totally fine, but now she moved away. It's 5 months later. Her boa stopped eating and her other snake is having problems shedding, and I was just like, something's changed. The environment changed. Like, I was just almost 100% sure that's what it was. And sure enough, when she moved, she went from a house that was always warm to now the snakes are in a place that's a little bit colder. So we just had to go through all this and reset up her whole thing and think about that and talk about that. So I'm going to put that in the video now so you can just see what I was showing her, and just so that I can get you to think about this properly, because some people don't know that the snakes need all these things exactly like this, and it's pretty simple once you know it. So just really make sure that you soak this in, remember these parameters, stick to them, and you can do all sorts of fun creative things with your snake. Now I forgot your name.
Victoria, easy.
Yes, so Victoria, she had these she has nice big homes for the snakes, and she just recently moved. So the thing is that before, where she was, it was warmer and the temperatures were okay. But now she's been having a little bit of problems with the snake shedding and everything. So before, we were using the lamps for light, but the light is not giving it enough heat, especially the glass tank and in the room in the basement. So it's a little bit colder. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to take those lights out and we're going to replace them with UBV lights. It's going to go into a timer, and we're going to have it about 5 to 8 hours. So not going on all the time, but just a little bit of UBV, and we're going to use the lightest amount, like the smallest percentage. We're not going to blast them with a ton of UBV, just a little bit, just to give them a little something. The top of the tanks were all kind of open, so all the humidity is coming out. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover the tops of the tank and a little bit more, just enough to let the light in. But there's lots of air there, and air gets out of the cracks and whatever, so we're not worried about air being trapped or anything. Then we're going to add 2 humidifiers on top of the tanks, and we're going to run like a little tube from the humidifier, so you can get some like your washing machine tubing or plumbing. You just go Home Depot or whatever, you get some tube, and you block off the hole that makes humidity, and you let the humidity drop into the tank. Because if you buy humidifiers for reptiles, like Reptifoggers and stuff, lots of the time they're like $80 and they don't work well and they take barely any water. But for about like $40-50, you should be able to find a good humidifier that'll put humidity into here. Then we're going to put a large heat pad, and we're going to make sure that we raise the bottom of the glass tank, because in the past she's tried to use heat and it's broken the glass because it's not able to like escape. So you need a little bit of airflow. So we're going to put under the 2 sides just a little bit up so that you can get the heat in under there. And then the heat is going to be ran into a thermostat, and they can both be put into the same thermostat since they'll both be the same kind of heat pads. And we're going to want to have a hot spot of about 90 to 92. I say here in the summertime you can be 88 to 90, but in the winter you kind of always want to be at 92. You're going to want to have a temperature inside the tank of about 80 Fahrenheit. So what I was saying is, since it's in a room that can be temperature controlled, she could make the temperature of the room around 70 degrees, and then the heat will bump that tank to about 80. And then we want to have the humidity at about 65%. People say 50 to 60 is okay, but it's not. You want to have 65% to like 70. You don't want to go past 70 because then the humidity can cause mold and stuff. But 65% I find to be the perfect level of humidity. And then we have a laser gun, because the laser gun, we can check those temperatures. We can check the temperature on the snake.
It should be around like 80. Then we check the temperature on the heat pads, 90 to 92. And then we need a little humidity probe that will tell us the humidity, so we make sure we get it right. And then we just adjust the dial on the humidifier that it's always giving it that constant 65% humidity, and then we should be good to go.
Now also, we forgot, because there's lots of space in these tanks. So you can take a Tupperware bin, cut a hole in it, stick it inside the tank, and then the snake can go inside it, and it can go on top of it. So you're giving it something to climb and somewhere to hide. You can even teach your snake to poo outside. I poop train my snakes. You can check out the video about that right at the end screen. It'll be there. Victoria, she was using some heat lamps, and now we're going to switch them to a bit of UV. I have videos about UV too. If you search UV, you can find that in my channel. But there's over 2,000 videos on this channel. Go into playlist, see if you find something interesting. I really hope this helped you. Please subscribe if you're not. Smash the like button. It really helps. If you have any questions, if you need any help, reach out to me and I'll be happy to give you some advice, send you some links if there's some things you need to buy. We got our first new snake in I think 3 years or something. 2 or 3 years. She had this snake for her son, but he wasn't really spending time with it. So she said she'd rather it come here. So we have 2 blue-eyed Lucy girls. So now we got a blue-eyed Lucy boy. So
we're keeping all.
We're keeping all the blue-eyed Lucies, and we'll be able to make some for you guys in the future since they're very popular.
Yeah, we're gonna keep some boys since we have 2 girls, right?
We only need 1 boy.
No.
So snakes make amazing pets. They're super easy to take care of. They teach kids responsibility. Avery's been taking care of snakes since she was a tiny little baby. So I think that they do make a great choice of a pet. Instead of giving your kid a cat that's going to shed everywhere and break everything, or a dog that's going to drool everywhere, shed everywhere, and you have to walk all the time. Snakes are very nice. They're very sweet. They're very calm. They make wonderful pets, and they're easy to take care for. And even if your kid loses interest, they're not so much a burden. What about you? So when you think about a snake's personality, how would you describe snakes?
Snakes are nice. Bother them in the face like you put your hand in their face or you tease them. They could bite you. But I know if you don't, you just hold them nice, they won't. See?
Yeah, as long as you're nice to snakes,
Yeah.
they'll be nice to you, especially if they were raised in a nice environment.
And they're always gonna be your friend.
Very nice. Thanks, Avery.
And flick the bell so you know when we upload videos. What are you doing, Snake? You're enemy.